All right, we can start now. Meanwhile, others are joining. So let me just introduce myself. So my name is Amar. I'm part of NetMinion. I have experience around 15 years. I have experience on the network security, cloud security, and information security. So I do have experience on the firewall. I do have experience on the load balancer and the cloud setup. So that's a brief about me. I'm not sure if Jed can give his intro. Jed, you there? All right, let's start then. Fine. So let's talk about Cisco Firepower. So Cisco Firepower is a firewall product from the Cisco. So Cisco has a firewall product since long time. Okay, so they have a firewall product, a Cisco ASA, and to remain competitor in the market, they came with the next generation firewall solution, and that next generation firewall solution product is called Cisco Firepower. So Cisco Firepower, we can say this is a next generation firewall from the Cisco vendor. We have multiple vendor in the market in terms of firewall, right? So we have a Palo Alto, we have a Checkpoint, we have a Cisco, we have a Juniper. Okay, so we have many vendors. So Cisco is one of the reputed vendor, and their next generation firewall product is a Cisco Firepower. So let's talk about Cisco Firepower. So if I talk about the Cisco Firepower, so it's a comprehensive cyber security platform which is developed by the Cisco system, and it contains hardware and software which provide advanced threat protection, including network visibility and security management. In Cisco Firepower, there are two key components. One is called FTD, which is known as a Firepower Threat Defense System, and the other is known as a FMC, which is known as a Firepower Management Center. So if I talk about the FTD, so this is the actual firewall device, right? So basically the filtration, traffic filtration, or protection is provided by the firepower device itself, firepower threat defense, FTD only. So we can say this is the core security software which runs on the Cisco next generation firewall. It has a firewall capabilities with intrusion prevention system. On this particular device, you can configure VPN and other security features like URL filtering, etc. The FTD is designed to provide unified threat management solution, which is helping organization to protect their network from the various cyber attack. Okay, so when I say unified threat defense system, so what is the meaning of that? So the firewall, first we need to understand what is the firewall, right? So let's say I have a device, okay, which is known as a firewall, and behind this device we have a network or users who just want to access internet. So let's say these are the users which want to access internet, which is behind the firewall. So what you can do, you can control the user, what they can access or what they cannot access. How? On the firewall, you can create a rule which would be providing you control to allow a specific user to access a specific destination. That's what your firewall basically providing. So firewall is capable to filter the traffic. Whatever the rule you would apply to allow the traffic, that traffic would be allowed, and whatever you won't allow or explicitly deny, so that traffic would be denied. So using the firewall, what you can do, you can control the access of your network, right? What user can access and what user cannot access, that the capability firewall is providing. Okay, so that's a basic capability of the firewall to filter the traffic. But what else firewall can do? Okay, not only it can filter the traffic, but also it can, see whether the traffic is malicious or not. Okay, using firewall you can create a VPN connection, that is also possible. So if your firewall is providing all these steps, so basically that is known as a unified threat management solution. So it is a single device on which you can have a firewall capability, you can have a URL filtering capability, you can have a IPS capability, intrusion prevention capability, or you can have a advanced threat protection capability, ATP, or you can have a VPN capability. So single device can provide multiple stuff, right? That's why it is known as a unified threat management solution. And using this single device, using FTD, what you can do, you can protect your network from various cyber threat attack. So if I talk about the cyber threat attack, so we have a different types of attack in the organization. The famous attacks are DDoS attack, DDoS attack. The famous attacks are, injection, SQL injection attack, the famous attack or IP spoofing attack. So we have so many famous attack. And if we want to protect our network from all these type of attack, we have to deploy the firewall in the network. Okay. So if I talk about Firepower threat defense, Firepower threat defense firewall. So basically this is a network firewall, which would be deployed on the network level, and it would be protecting your organization. Now, this firepower, if we have a multiple firewall, so let's say one firewall we have in, let's say, India location, another firewall we have in US location, or another firewall we have in UK location. So if we have multiple firewall in a different location, and we just want to manage these firewall. So when I say manage these firewall, basically on the firewall, we just want to manage the security rules, we want to manage the logs, okay, or we want to manage the configuration of all these firewalls. So how we can manage? Either we can go and individually log in into the each firewall and manage the configuration, security rule, etc., or we can use a centralized management device, which is known as a FMC. There we can integrate all these firewall, and we just need to log in into the FMC, and from there we can access all these firewall configuration, we can manage the security policy, we can manage the logs, etc. Okay. So in Cisco Firepower system, we have a two thing. One thing, we have a firewall, which is known as a FTD. So on all these location, we would have a FTD installed to protect the network. We have a FTD. And if we just want to manage the firewall and their logs, so we have to install FMC. Okay. So using a Firepower Management Center, it is a centralized management console which allow you to administrator and configure, monitor, and manage Cisco Firepower devices. It's providing unified interface, a single interface using which you can manage the policy, you can manage the threat monitoring, and you can manage the reporting. That means in FMC, if you integrate your firewall in FMC, for any configuration or for any monitoring, you do not need to access the firewall. Directly, you can use the FMC. From there, you can configure everything. Right? So that's what the two component of the Cisco Firepower system. One is FTD, which is firewall. This is network security device. And other is FMC, which is Firepower Management Center, using which you can manage your firewall in terms of configuration, monitoring, etc. So take a simple example. Let's say I just want to monitor that how much CPU utilization on this gateway, this FTD. So I have a two option. I can log in on the FTD, I can see the CPU utilization, or I can log in on the FMC, select that particular location FTD, India location FTD, and there I can see entire CPU utilization, memory utilization, policy, etc. So that's what the centralized management center, I mean firepower management center, which is one of the centralized management console. Now the thing is, the firepower or FMC, they have both option. You can deploy them as a software or you can deploy them as a hardware. Both options you have. So you can purchase the hardware or you can deploy a software virtual machine. So they are providing a virtual machine, okay, that you can deploy in your data center as a firewall device or FMC. And also you can purchase the hardware. So if I talk about the hardware, so for FTD, we have a very famous hardware, which is 4200 series of the hardware. This is one of the very famous series of the hardware. Okay, so Cisco Firepower 4200 series of the hardware you can purchase as a firewall. And if you want to use FMC, so for FMC, you can use 1001 hardware. Okay, so they have the both option. Let me know if you have any question before moving to next slide. Okay, so let's move to next slide. And here we are going to talk about the Cisco Firepower, a brief history. So actually, if I talk about the Cisco Firepower product, so basically this is not original from the Cisco, basically. It is purchased from the third party. Cisco has acquired the third party company and they have given their name on this particular product. So Cisco Firepower, basically its origin is from the source fire. So there was a source fire company which was founded in 2001 by Martin Roach. He was the creator of the Snort open system. So basically Snort was what? Basically they were providing the security capability to protect the network from the intrusion system. So Snort was one of the IPS intrusion system, and basically that having the capability of the source fire. It was this company, which is SourceFire, it has created a commercial version of its Snort software. Okay. And it was SourceFire 3D system. Okay. Which was evolved into the company Firepower line. And SourceFire, this company was acquired by the Cisco in 2013. Okay. And then Cisco started the integration of SourceFire technology into their product, which was a kind of a Cisco ASA system, Cisco ISR router, and in the same time, they have started manufacturing the independent hardware. So they released some firepower appliances, which was basically installed as a source fire technology. So we have a Cisco Firepower 2100 series of the hardware, 4100 series of the hardware, and 9300 series of the hardware. So basically what I mean to say, Cisco has an individual security appliance for the firepower, and they also supporting their existing appliance like Cisco ASA and ISR router is also supporting the firepower system. So if you want to deploy, let's say you have a ASA firewall, and in ASA firewall, if you want to have the feature of the Cisco Firepower, then you have to deploy source fire operating system on the Cisco ASA firewall. Okay, and their X series platform was supporting this thing. So X stands for here. X means the firepower. So X series of the appliances would be supporting the integration of the firepower. So if you have any existing device, okay, that would be supporting your firepower. On there, you can integrate the firepower. And if you want to purchase any new device for the firepower system, so you can purchase a new device as well. Okay. So nowadays, Cisco ASA is really not used in the organization, or it's a very old hardware. So companies are migrating their old hardware to the new hardware, which is known as a Cisco Firepower. So company are replacing their Cisco ASA 55,000 series of the hardware into the new series of the Firepower hardware. Moving to next, let's talk about consideration when you are choosing a Cisco Firepower on ASA. So why we should go for the Cisco Firepower? If you have ASA firewall and you just want to upgrade to the Firepower, so how you would give the value to company that what advanced feature you are getting if you are using the Cisco Firepower? So let's say you have a security need. Let's say your organization required a basic firewall system. Okay, then it can remain with the Cisco ASA. But if it want to have advanced threat protection and the threat visibility, so for that, firepower is a better choice. So let's say you just want a basic firewall to filter the traffic, or you just want to VPN connection. Then your ASA is sufficient. But let's say you just want to have advanced protection from threat. When I say advanced protection from threat, so let's say if there is any malicious IP is trying to access your network. So your Cisco ASA firewall would not be able to catch that malicious IP. However, your firepower would be able to catch that because they have the advanced protection system where they would be able to identify the malicious IP from the database. Okay, so firepower has its own database or Intel feeds. From there, it would be able to identify this is the malicious IP or blacklisted IP. And those blacklisted IP, if trying to access your network, the firewall is going to block that. So if you have a security needs, then you can go for the firepower. If you want to have the great integration, like if you want to integrate with the IPS, advanced malware protection, URL filtering, then you can prefer the firepower. Okay, a firepower has a user interface, a new user interface, which is totally different from Cisco ASDM, okay, or Cisco ASA. So for this user interface might be required a separate training for your organization. Firepower is providing scalability. Okay, you can scale up uh, your network. Okay, so it is designed to scale for the larger and more complex environment with the advanced security need. Cost, if you are using Cisco Firepower, so uh, it is having more cost than Cisco ASA. So you need to consider your budget accordingly. So that is about the consideration when you are upgrading your firewall from ASA to Firepower, like security consideration, integration consideration, user interface, scalability, and cost. Now moving to next, what are the security features that firewall is providing? So first of the things it is providing to manage multiple firewall from single console, that is the FMC. This is the first security feature it is providing. This is not security feature, but we can say the management feature. Like if we have multiple firewall and we just want to manage from single location, there we can use FMC and we can integrate the firewall. What is the other thing it is providing? It is providing FTD. This is Firepower Threat Defense System. So FTD is nothing but this is a firewall. So firewall capability is going to provide by the FTD. This is FMC and this is FTD. FTD is actual firewall, okay, and FMC is a management console. In the firepower, we have a IPS, intrusion prevention system. So let's say if somebody is trying to hack my network, okay, by sending multiple attacks, like it is sending SQL attack, it is sending any kind of known vulnerability attacks. So firepower would be able to identify using a IPS module or IPS system, and it would be able to block those malicious traffic. So I can take an example. Let's say I have Windows Server 2008 in our network, Windows Server 2008. And let's say this is a pretty old operating system which is required to run my application. But I just want to protect this Windows Server 2008 from the known attacks. So I can put this Windows System Server 2008 behind the firewall. And even though if I have exposed the application which is running on this Windows 2008 over the internet, let's say I have a user over the internet. This user is trying to access this web server, which is running on Windows Server 2008. And let's say for Windows Server 2008, there are a lot of known vulnerabilities. So one vulnerability you can let's see, SMB version 1 vulnerability we have on this Windows server. Okay, so what attacker would try to do? Attacker would try to exploit this vulnerability. However, when this attacker is going to run the exploits, my firewall would be able to identify the exploits, because on my firewall we have a IPS system which is able to identify or prevent the network from the known vulnerability. So if we have any known vulnerability somebody is trying to exploit, you know so this firewall would be able to block this connection. So this attacker, if trying to exploit any vulnerabilities, so my firewall would be able to block that connection. So that is what is use of the intrusion prevention system. So if somebody is trying to, exploit your network vulnerability or operating system vulnerabilities, so your intrusion prevention system would be able to protect against those exploitation or those vulnerabilities. We have advanced malware protection. So this is one of the great feature which is provided by the Cisco Firepower, right? So if there is any, I mean, there is the feature to protect the firewall from the advanced malware. So when I say advanced malware protection, so your firepower is able to identify any sophisticated malware. So malware is what? Malicious software. Okay. That is trying to install on your computer system. And from there, they would try to, try to send that information, malicious information over the remote system. Or maybe it is trying to destroy the information which is located into the server or application itself. So advanced malware system, what it is going to do, it is going to employ various technique. For example, reputation, sandboxing. Okay. And based on that, it would be able to identify that this is a malicious software or malicious file which need to be blocked before uh, passing through the network. So take an example. Let's say this Windows system or user is trying to download a file from here, from the internet, and this file is containing viruses. So how my firewall would be able to identify whether this file is containing viruses or not? So based on the file signature, it would be able to identify the virus. If it is not able to identify the virus based on the file signature, then what it is going to use, it is going to use sandbox system, where it is going to extract the file, going to note the behavior, and if the behavior looks malicious, then that file is going to be blocked. So that is what the advanced malware protection does. The firepower is capable to do the URL filtering as well. So if there is any URL and users want to block a specific category of URL, for example, let's say we have a NetMinion. This URL, let's say this is educational, its category is educational. And then we have any other URL, let's say we have Facebook, fb.com, or we have x.com. So these are social networking type of URL. So if we just want to block a specific category of URL on the firepower, we can do that. For that, we have to enable URL filtering feature. So let's say I just want to block any kind of social networking URL, but educational, professional category URL, I just want to allow. So for that, we can use URL filtering feature. In Cisco Firepower, we have a security intelligence feeds. So basically, what is this? So basically, Cisco Firepower is going to get the intel from the different sources. They have the capability to get the intel from the different sources. And based on the intel, it would be able to live detect that what is the malicious user, IP, domain, or not. All those things Cisco Firepower would be able to feeds. So let's say this user is trying to access a website, let's say www.xyz.com. But this xyz.com is a malicious domain. So in Cisco Firepower database, it would be able to get the feeds from different source to identify this domain is a malicious. So when a user is trying to access any malicious domain, that domain is going to block by the Cisco Firepower. Then on Cisco Firepower, we have application visibility and control. So basically you can block the traffic based on the application. So for example, for this user, you just want to block Zoom application, but other application you want to allow, so that you can do using application and visibility control. And finally, we have SSL decryption. So any encrypted traffic you just want to inspect, for that you need to apply the SSL decryption. So all these security features can be provided into one box, that is a Cisco Firepower. In FTD itself, you can enable all these features. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, if there is no question, so let's move to demo. Okay, and before demo, we can talk about our syllabus, what we are going to cover over here. So in Cisco Firepower, we are going to cover FTD devices. So we are going to talk about how to install FTD and how to install FMC, how to manage the firewall using FDM, which is known as a Firepower Device Manager. And then we are going to tell you that how you can access FTD using FDM. Okay. And we will see the FDM lab as well. So in FDM, sorry, in FDM, we are going to talk about multiple things, including system settings, management access, diagnostic and logging, DSCP server configuration, DNS server configuration, okay, interface management, host name management, NTP configuration, HTTP proxy, web analytics, rebooting of the firewall, URL filtering, all those things we are going to discuss um, to the uh, by using the FDM, right? And after that, after FDM, we will talk about, you know, FMC. So we would have a FMC. We will talk about FMC. So what things we are going to cover overall? We are going to cover, how to manage, URL filtering, how to manage, HTTP proxy, how to configure NTP, how to configure VPN, how to configure, policy, how to, manage uh, advanced threat protection, ATP, etc. How to deploy SSL decryption, all these netting, etc. All those things we are going to cover overall, right? We will talk about what are the CLI commands for FTD, what is a NAT, side-to-side VPN, all these things we are going to cover. So both we are going to use FMC and FDM to configure the FTD, okay? And using which you can manage a standalone firewall and you can manage the group of the firewall as well. Coming to lab, so this is our lab. How you can access it? You need to type labs.netminion.net and you would be able to access the lab. If you click on access your lab, you should be able to access the lab which is assigned to you. So in our case, this FTD and FMC, this lab is assigned to me. I would be able to access it, right? So if I click on edit, you can see that we have a Cisco Firepower 6 And here we are going to use 6.7.0. This is the FTD version. And we have a FMC. This is a FMC. So here we have a 7.0.1.84. That's the FMC version. So to power on these devices, what we need to do is just need to click on this power on option. And as soon as I would click on this power on option, my device is going to be started. I can see the status of all these devices by clicking on the device itself. And I should be able to see the console of the device. And you can see this device is booting. So this is FTD and we have FMC as well. Both devices are booting right now. Now I would focus here on the FTD itself. So it is going to take some time. Usually it's takes 10 to 15 minutes to up all the things. Okay, so this is pretty fresh devices that is deployed on this EVNG. And if I click on any device, I should be able to see the console. And for opening the console, I do not need to connect it. Yes, it should be able to show me on the browser itself. So it's going to take some time. It is around 5 to 10 minutes. Meanwhile, if you have any question, please let me know. Right now, device is booting. This FTD device is booting. So in case of any question, please let me know. Okay, so boot is completed. So let's log in. Default username is admin and password admin 123. So you can see I'm able to log in. It is asking me to accept the user agreement. So I'm pressing enter to accept the user agreement. Press enter. It is asking to put me new password. So I'm putting new password. Test at 123. Test at 123. So now it is asking to me to configure IP version 4. I would say yes. I just want to configure. On IP version 6, I don't want to configure right now. So now it is asking, do you want to configure IP manually? So I would say manual, yes. So I just want to configure manual IP. It is asking me what IP you want to assign. So I want to assign 10.0.0.1. That's IP address. Subnet mask 255.255.255.0. That's a subnet mask. Default gateway 10.0.0.254. 0.0.254. That's a default gateway. Fully qualified host name. So I would put FTD dot NetMinion .net. Okay. Any kind of DNS I just want to configure? I would say no. Any kind of domain name I just want to configure? None. Okay. So do you want to manage device locally? So if you select locally, that means you can manage device using FDM, Firepower Device Manager. And if you select no, then it would ask to manage the device using FMC. So I just want to manage locally. So I would say yes. And now it is configuring the firewall into the routed mode. So when I say routed mode, that means Firepower can do the routing as well. Okay. So I have configured the firewall, and once I have configured the firewall, if I just want to see the network configuration, so I can run the command show network. So using this command, I should be able to see all the network level configuration where I can see the host name, where I can see the DNS server, where I can see the management port, default gateway, and I can see the IP address. So this device IP address, which is management interface IP address, is 10.0.0.1. I can access this device. How? From this Windows server, I would try to access this management system. So let's access this Windows machine. I clicked on the Windows machine and you can see three terminal has been opened. If I click over here, I should be able to see Windows terminal. So I need to make sure that my firewall would be pinging to my this Windows machine would be pinging to firewall or not. So let's go to command prompt and try to ping 10.0.0.1. If I'm able to ping, I should be able to access this firewall. How I can access? Using the console I can access. So I would go to console. There I would type HTTP and then IP address of the console. I mean IP address of my Firepower device, FTD. And you can see this is showing not secure. I would click on advanced, proceed. Okay, so it's going to take some time because right now it would be still configuring the console. So let's close this. Need to wait for 2 to 3 minutes because right now it is showing 403. That means still it is configuring the web console internally. Yeah, so this time console has been loaded. Now I can type the username and password. So username is admin and password I have changed. So I have put test at 123. So after putting all these username and password, I should be able to access the FDM. How I would be able to identify that using FDM, I'm trying to access my firewall. So there you can see this is FDM. Okay. So using FDM, I'm managing this firewalls. My firewall name is ftd.netminion.net, which IP is 10.0.0.1. And this is complete FTD. So since I'm accessing the device in first time, so it is asking me to set up the device where I can set up what would be my inside network and what would be my outside network. Okay, so basically it is saying that gig 0/1, this is gig 0/1. This would be my inside network where I would connecting my internal network where I would have a user. And gig 0/0, this would be connected to the internet. That's what it is showing. So this would be internet link. So if you want to configure your internal network, external network, you can configure. And we have a separate management interface where I have IP 10.0.0.1. So on these interface, if you want to configure IP, you can configure the IP. For example, for this inside network, you can put the IP here 192.168.2.1. 2.1 you can put right there. And here you can put any IP 100.0.0.1 you can put. So you can put IP in that way, okay, where you can configure your inside network and you can configure your outside network. But I'm not configuring right now. I would skip this setup and I would do the later. If you configure this, you would have option to configure the interface. You have the option to configure DNS server, NTP server, and licensing system. So by default, Cisco is giving 90 days trial licenses. 90 days trial licenses it is giving to you. So you can use those 90 days trial license to configure all these stuffs. So right now what I would do, I would skip this device setup And if you want to do currently this setup, so you can click on this next option and it would be showing you all those setup information where you can set up the host name, etc. So host name I have already set up. I don't need to set up again. So it is asking me to connect the firewall to the internet. Okay, I can do that, or I can go back from here where I can skip the setups. So it is 90 days trial licenses is going to be enabled, and my firewall would be configured on the routing mode. If I just want to deploy the policy, I need to click on this deploy button and entire policy is going to be deployed. So this is a complete, uh, you know, console of this FDM, Firepower Device Manager, where I can access the FTD configuration console. If I just want to configure the interfaces, so we have option over here. We can configure the interfaces, we can configure the routes, we can configure the updates, we can configure the license, we can take the backup, we can troubleshoot my firewall, we can configure site-to-site VPN, remote access VPN, any kind of CLI configuration I just want to do, I can do from here. And there is option who can access my firewall. I can configure here management access. I can configure log setting, DSCP, DNS, etc. That I can do from here. Then I have option monitoring. This is the important option. Before monitoring, I just want to show you all these options. So here you can see this is the model Cisco Firepower Threat Defense for KVM. So this is a virtual firewall. This is not a physical firewall. This is the FTD version, and this is the database. This is the rule updates. So I can see all those information here. Here we have a monitoring option where I can see information related to system. So on the system related information, we can say that what is the management interface IP, what is the other interface IP, I can see from here. So management interface IP is 10.0.0.1. So that information we can see from here. Okay, this is the throughput of my firewall. That's a overall interfaces. So it is showing me zero throughput right now. I mean, there is no traffic is going through. Then we can see the CPU utilization. CPU utilization, we can see that is 20% average CPU it is utilized. We can see the memory utilization, which is RAM, 25%, and this is disk utilization. So I can see the system utilization. System related information I can see here. Any kind of network overview I just want to see. So I can click over here. So we can see the any user application related rules I don't have. So I cannot see. Attacks, etc. If you want to see, you can see what are the attacks is happening on your firewall or on your network. Any kind of top destination I just want to see. So I can see here top destination zone, URL category, etc. So anything, if you just want to monitor, we can use a monitoring tab to monitor the thing. We have policy options. From here we can create a policy. For example, there is a rule is applied. This is saying inside to out. So it is saying, what is this rule is saying? Any source from inside zone going to outside, by default this is allowed. Okay, we can see action is by default allowed. We can edit the rule if we want. So as you can see, inside out, this action is going to trust it. Okay, so trust means allow it. Okay, with the inspection. And if you select allow, that means without inspection, it is going to allow that. So this is your default rule. I just want to close this, which is allowing your inside zone to outside zone traffic. And apart from this, we have a default block rule. So this is access control default block rule. Apart from this, any traffic is going outside, that would be blocked. So it is going to provide me a graphical view as well, that what is happening to my traffic. So if I click on this arrow button, it is going to expand that. If I just want to deploy all these rules, if I create any rule over here and I just want to deploy that, so I need to use this option for deployment. So if I click over here and click on deploy now, so it is going to deploy the configuration which I had on this firewall. So it is going to apply that. So post creation of any rule, you have to use this deployment option. You can click on OK and task is going to shown over here. All the tasks you can see over here, what the task has been triggered so far. Okay, apart from this, we have the object option. So there we can create a different type of object like network object, port object, security zone, application object. We can create any type of object and those object we can call into the security policy. Okay, we have the CLI option as well. For example, I just want to access firewall CLI. So I can click on this CLI console. I should be able to access firewall CLI over here. So for example, I just want to run any command. So I can run the command show network. I can run that command and I should be able to see all the information related to network. So I don't need to switch anywhere else. From the here itself, I can run the CLI as well if I just want to see anything. Okay. Here you can see if you go on the right side, there you can see that which user has been logged in. And if you want to log out, you can log out from here. Okay. So that's all the information related to your firewall. If you click on this firewall icon, you should be able to see device related information. Okay, please let me know if you have any question. If I just want to assign any interface IP, I can go here and I can assign the interface IP. We have gig 0/0. This is outside interface. And if I just want to assign IP, I can go on this section option. There I can click on edit and then I can assign IP. For example, I just want to assign manual IP. So I would go to static option and there I would define manual IP 100.0.0.1 and then subnet mask 24. And I can click on OK. So IP is assigned. For another interface, for example, this interface, if I just want to assign IP, I can go here and click, and then I can assign the IP. For example, 192.168.2.1. That IP I can assign, and then subnet mask, and then click on OK. The interface address. Okay, it is asking for DSCP pool. I have removed the DSCP pool and then I click on OK. Okay, so this is the interface IP I have defined. Any management IP, if you want to configure, you can configure from here only. So I don't want to assign any management IP so that I should not lose the access. So in this way, I have assigned what? IP to the firewall. And then I can create a policy and we can control the firewall rules. Okay, so that's all I had for demo. If you have question, please ask me. Else we can go for actual classes where we will see how we can deploy the firewall policy and then how we can test those firewall policy from this lab. So do you have any question before closing this demo?